I actually think it's the best place possible to start, Dan, if that's okay with you, is to just describe what Twitch is. You have 105 million monthly actives. For loads of people, it is a passion. It's their entire world. But there's going to be a big section of the audience that don't know what Twitch is. And then, Pokey, we can talk about the millions and millions of people that follow you and interact on it. But Dan, take it away. What is Twitch?
Well, I'll start by saying most of y'all have probably heard of Twitch, but you're like, yeah, but what do they really do there? Because I doubt there are a lot of people who spend a lot of time watching Twitch.
Well, some people think that you go down water slides and film it live.
You do. So Twitch is, first of all, it's a live streaming platform, okay? A lot of the other services have live streaming, but make Twitch unique, as I use the phrase, it's a community-centric live streaming platform. Because really, when people come to Twitch, they come to Twitch and they spend time with a small number of creators. Okay, when you're on Instagram or YouTube or TikTok, you might see hundreds or thousands of creators. On Twitch, if you use it in a week, you might watch 5 to 10 creators. Okay, and what that does is it creates this tight bond between the people that are watching. Because really, community fundamentally is about shared experience together. Okay, at the same time. And so since these people are experiencing this together, they form connections. And people who are watching feel a sense of belonging and acceptance for who they are. And the channels range from all sizes, from the larger channels to small channels. I stream, as you said, and I'm a small channel, okay? But you get this...
Sell yourself short, Dan.
Right, you get this sense of community, which is foundational to what, we as human beings, like. And people do everything you can imagine on Twitch. As you said, it started with gaming, but now people do a lot of just chatting where they're hanging out, and they do in real life where they're going out and doing things. And really what it's about is authentically exposing yourself to community, which is foundational.
We're going to get to those latter two bits, just chatting in IRL very soon. Pokey, if you'll allow me to. Your name is Imane, yes. A.k.a. Pokimane,
Great pronunciation.
Pokey.
Yes.
But what is your day job?
Oh, that's tough to say. I guess I would define it maybe as a content creator, but what I like to do is I just like to share my life, whatever I'm into, whatever I'm feeling, whatever I'm thinking, sometimes a little TMI, but nonetheless. And ideally to entertain people, have them smile, laugh, join me along in my life. So that's what I'd say.
To give the audience some context, Pokey is one of the most followed and engaged with content creators on Twitch, almost 10 million followers, right? But millions and millions also across Instagram, YouTube, X. And so that two sides of the business, the guy that runs the company and the platform and one of its most prominent users. The live streaming part, we're going to do a poll. I'd love to get your thoughts, of course, on the factors that are impacting both of you. But let's bring it up, team. What's the biggest challenge facing the growth of live streaming? Short-form video competition, monetization for creators, which we'll talk about, moderation and trust, we will talk about, and shifting viewer habits. And we'll come back to that in just a little bit so that you, the audience, can vote on it. Dan, you use the word community a lot. To be fair to lots of people, they go, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
It's a throwaway. But actually, you also correct me if I'm wrong. Like when I go on Twitch, I see, tribalism a little bit. People's just very focused on the people that they want to interact with thematically. They spend hours of their lives every day doing this. Sell us on community in a real way.
I think a lot of people in the digital world throw around this word community like the word social, and to be honest, it kind of means nothing.
Right.
When I use it, I actually think I'm using it correctly. So if you go back to the foundation of the world, when you think of a community, whether it's a church community or whether it's a community from your kid's school or community from a neighborhood, a community really is this sense of connection and belonging with other people. And it goes back to what you said with tribalism, that we fundamentally evolved to gather together, and that's why we survived as human beings, is because we would gather together into a community. And I think the foundation of actual community is shared synchronous experiences.
Could I add to that, actually?
Yeah.
I think oftentimes nowadays in the online creator space, people confuse the terms community and audience. They're actually entirely different, and I feel like most of the content that we consume, we are consuming it as an audience, especially when it comes to short form. I watch a TikTok. I don't know anyone else who's watching the TikTok. I hit a couple likes on the comments, but it's such a large audience that you don't know who else it is or what you share in common or what you don't.
So you have 10 million followers on Twitch, right? Do you have a sense of who those people are? Like, what is the conversation you are having with them? Because sometimes it is direct. You're literally answering questions, or you are playing video game content that's been requested by those people.
Yeah, so I'd say on Twitch is where I have the most consistent viewer base. There are people who have been watching me for 4, 5, 6, 9, 10 years, a very long time, and oftentimes they know each other. And the Twitch platform has a lot of overlap with Twitter. And so I feel like we're all exposed to the same tweets, the same content, the same games, and that's what builds a sense of community. Whereas if I like a TikTok creator, I don't really connect with anyone else who's watching them.
Right. I think the history is really important here. In 2013, you started streaming on Twitch. You were playing video games, very specific video games. Just explain how that happened, because there are loads of questions that I get from people all over the world, actually, of different ages that basically say, I'd like to emulate Poki's career in very high volume, that a lot of people are trying to do what you've done. But a lot of people also aren't that conscious that you kind of started in your room just doing it. Take it from there.
I think for most creators who end up going full-time, they just start making content because they want to, because they enjoy the process. For me personally, when I started, gaming wasn't as cool as it is nowadays with the kids. And at my high school, I went to a kind of smaller high school. I didn't know anybody else who gamed. And so all of my gaming friends were online. And so when I started streaming, it wasn't to have a career or to make money. That was the last thing on my mind, and wasn't as common back then. I started just because I wanted to meet other people who wanted to game with me. And that's what I did. But then in the process, I also built a community. I started entertaining others.
Just quick, which games and why?
I started off with League of Legends just because that's what I was playing at the time. But I'm so sorry, my mic. I should know how to do this better by now. But yes, I started with League just because that was the game that I was playing at the time. And since then, I've followed some of the trends. I've delved into different games, IRL, a bit of everything, really.
Dan, I'm going to jump away to something a little bit different, because we're going to use Poki as kind of a case study of how to have a career in this. But something I notice is the sort of prominence and status of the leading content creators on your platform. Some of them are like thinking about jumping into film and television. Some of them are thinking of their own brands. You, in the beginning of the year, wrote this kind of open letter about what you wanted to do with Twitch in 2020-25. But did you have it on your bingo card, so to speak, that you would be thinking about how to push some of these really influential names into fields like film, television, do deals with third parties, franchising, revenue shares, things like that?
Yeah, well, the beauty of it is we aren't pushing them. In fact, part of
helping them.
Well, we create a platform that then they can use to express themselves, okay? And really another thing that's different about Twitch is the creators are the stars. The emotional connection that viewers have are with the creators. That's, I think, different from other platforms, because other platforms, you kind of see the creators, but you think about the platform. People have a connection with Twitch, but really it's the creators are the reason they come. And so that's deep in kind of how we think about it. And so really what you see is these people who, and you know, they're creators on our platform. I think everyone's a creator, okay? And these are people that are building upon what they've been doing and exploring what the limits of their creativity is, and it's kind of naturally transitioned to them taking advantage of other opportunities. And you know, for us, we're ecstatic for that, because while that isn't always on Twitch, it doesn't matter, because Twitch is their home, and Twitch is the place where they come to spend time with their audience.
Okay, we're all adults here, and over the last few weeks...
Speak for yourself.
It's been, well, I'm a young man. It's been interesting to interact with you both, you know, the relationship you have with each other. The frank reality is that at one time, Poki had exclusivity on Twitch. That's now over.
Yeah, we have an open relationship.
Yeah,
an open relationship, you know, but you're still on Twitch, you know, and I think there was a lot of misreporting and misunderstanding out there, actually, that this was you moving away from Twitch. Just go on Twitch. You spend a lot of time there. But it's really interesting, because you now in your career, you have choices. And then, Dan, we will get you, you know, to give you a perspective on the whole exclusivity thing. But you operate across a number of platforms. How do you balance it?
Honestly, my favorite part about where I'm at in my career now is that I get to kind of pick and choose what I want to do on which platform and for which purpose. So, for example, I think Twitch is the best place to connect and engage with people. That's what made me fall in love with streaming. I actually get immediate feedback. I feel like I'm actually hanging out with other people because that chat is always talking back to you. Whereas if I'm looking to reach the widest amount of people or really get a certain message out, I'd probably opt for TikTok, maybe IG. If I want to take some cute photos, IG. So it's really, what do I want to do and who do I want to share it with?
Strategically, Dan, the exclusivity or no exclusivity, has it mattered to Twitch?
Yeah, I actually think when we went exclusive in the end, it was a mistake. It was a reaction to competition coming in and coming after our streamers. And we were like, well, we need to make sure we get exclusivity. I think actually it just served to keep the live streaming market smaller because ultimately people going out there and doing other stuff is going to grow live streaming.
Sorry to interrupt you. Keep the live stream market smaller. So yes. In that case, do you mind if we bring up the poll results? Because this will actually help us answer some of those questions.
Yeah.
Shifting viewer habits.
I would say the same thing.
Okay, so both of you take it from there and run with it. I mean, why would you want to keep that market small?
No, we don't want to keep it small.
I see, okay.
No, we want to keep it big. I'm saying exclusivity was forcing everything within Twitch, right? And as we've gone to now saying, you go decide what you want to do, and if you want to live stream somewhere else, I would say my answer to this wasn't one of your options, okay? I think our biggest challenge is a lot of people haven't realized the magic of live streaming and how valuable and how meaningful it could be. The need for belonging and community is a human need. Gamers have that need, but non-gamers have that need as well. And I think Twitch is really our biggest challenge is to expose more people to say, wow, this is really cool. I want to spend more time doing this.
Yeah.
And I think that is what's going to cause it to keep growing.
Poki, sorry to interrupt. You said something very clear. You know that in your Twitch audience, there are people that have been there 6-8 years. How do you know that? And if the top answer was shifting viewer habit, well, actually, your audience is very loyal.
To clarify, well, for starters, I know because I've seen the same usernames for 6-8 years, and they have a little badge by their name saying they've been subscribed for that long. I think that was the correct answer because I've been lucky enough to live through Twitch when it was blowing up during the pandemic. And the fact that it has since then kind of decreased in growth signals to me when people are at home, they're willing to watch a stream for 6+ hours a day. Nowadays, most people don't have time. They have time to scroll through some TikToks when it fits into their schedule, but they can't watch Twitch for that long because we're luckily not all cooped up at home. Right. So I think that's what has shifted in the audience behavior, and that's what has changed on Twitch as well.
Dan, I think it's a good jumping in point for the business model of Twitch. Simply, how do you make money? But based on what we've discussed, Poki being out on other platforms with a big following, there must be cross-pollination. Traffic must go both ways, which would help you.
Yeah, I mean, when Twitch started, Poki was probably posting YouTube videos. Okay, because when Twitch started, it was always symbiotic with YouTube and other platforms, and it's symbiotic today. The way I think of it is you want the content to find the viewer, and there are these great short-form platforms, right? So short-form content works great on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and a huge part of all of our streamers is they create content live on Twitch, but then that is upstream of all the short-form content. Many of our top creators today literally get hundreds of clips from a single stream that goes out off of lots of accounts on social media, and that has the audience, that reaches a much broader audience.
Poki, how do you choose how you apportion your time on any given day? Whoa, Dan.
It's my phone and the AI on it must be, you know?
AI is on my last cue card, so please hold it till then.
For me personally, I kind of go with the flow a little bit in terms of what excites me and what I feel my audience would like to see from me. Sometimes maybe a cool game will come out. I know they'll enjoy watching me play with my friends. Sometimes games are a little bit more dry, so I'd rather maybe pre-film some TikToks, or if I have a really cool event, like I went to a huge event in Paris recently, and to me that just screams opportunity to vlog something. So I more so look at, okay, what's coming up in my life and what format do I feel those things fit into?
Okay, Amazon and Twitch. Twitch is a part of Amazon. The original idea was to help Amazon with what it wanted to do in gaming. But we're about to talk about how Twitch is not just about gaming anymore. It's IRL, it's just chatting. How is things with Amazon right now?
I mean, Amazon has been great at supporting everything that we're doing. Twitch gives Amazon a platform where they can reach a younger audience, which I think is important for Amazon. And really what they've mostly done, as opposed to worrying about how they can use Twitch for something else, they've just been good shepherds of saying it's a product that has huge cultural impact, and we need to shepherd that and take care of that. And they've been hugely supportive in investing.
So, Poki, earlier this morning we talked about the idea that at some point you just stopped doing as much video games and you started doing IRL, and you did these just chatting sessions. You talk about a broad range of subject matter, in part because Twitch now allows you to.
Yeah.
But was there a moment where you were like, I have something to say about something else that has nothing to do with this game?
I mean, to be honest, I talk a lot, so I've always been like this. But I also think the great part about Twitch is you're always in contact with your chat. So whether or not you want to even talk about something, they will be asking. And so I feel like, if anything, they have been my guide towards, what do you want to hear from me? What are you curious about? And that's kind of how I got more comfortable discussing a broad range of topics.
Safety and moderation.
Mm-hmm.
Dan, actually, it's very clear on Twitch. There are automated safeguards. There are basically what I would call curator or moderator, human people making intervention. But just explain how the system works from how the creators are protected, and then how I guess the audience base or the user base is moderated within the guidelines that you have.
Yeah, so really, in terms of safety, you can break it down into two parts. One part is making sure that what the streamers are doing are consistent with our community guidelines. We have a very clear set of community guidelines about what's allowed, and we consistently enforce that, and that has been really foundational, I think, to part of Twitch's market position. So half is, what is the creator doing? A huge part, and actually now where I think most of our effort is, what can we do to support the creator in terms of protecting them, keeping them safe, and really letting them create a space that is right for them. So we have the ability where a creator, we have a floor that nobody can do on Twitch, but a creator can set their own rules for what their community can do in their chat, okay? And then they have moderators that determine when someone is behaving in a way that isn't appropriate for their chat. If it's inappropriate for the platform, then we take action regarding the platform. If it's inappropriate just for the standards of their community, then they determine whether or not this person can keep participating. Right. And again, we use both automated and humans to kind of bring together the best of both worlds to make it that our creators can create a community that reflects their values and principles.
Poki, what's your experience been? In the IRL context and in the just chatting context, you do talk about a number of political and societal issues that are important to you and that you have some informed opinion about.
I think at the end of the day, I just try to remind myself, my platforms, although my goal is to reach tons of people and build a beautiful community, my platforms are also for me. So if someone is on my channel and they're behaving in a way that I don't like or I don't agree with, whether or not they want to leave, I'm kicking them out. So I feel like every creator should be reminded of that, because if I don't feel safe making content, then I won't be able to do so.
And I'll say, this is one of the key differences between live streaming and many other social platforms. When you post something on certain social platforms, you might get all sorts of people giving little snippets, okay? And the reality is, like, when I stream, if people aren't going to behave okay, I kick them off. And now I really am in a world where I don't get nearly the blowback that you get on many other social platforms, because you're able to create that environment about those folks that really share your values.
Very recently, California Governor Newsom took to Twitch. And he basically...
With my friend Connor, that was fun.
Right, okay, and so the backstory very quick, so we're going to run out of time now, is that he was interacting with somebody who his kids knew, right, the president, for example, was banned from Twitch, I think, until July 2024. That is a domain where you have leading political figures either on or not on Twitch. How do you policy that?
Yeah, so from a policy perspective, we apply similar standards to them as anyone on Twitch. And we very much believe that our role is to make sure that we have guidelines about you can be free to express your opinions. However, we also say it's not a platform for hate and harassment and targeting attacks at individuals.
Poki, earlier you kindly explained to me how you make money. I think there'd be a lot of benefit to this big audience around the world that kind of look at the content creator economy and are like, how does that work? Would you be willing to do so now?
Absolutely. Actually, I think what's the one thing that people don't know about as much? And it's the way in which Twitch differs, which is that when you subscribe to someone on YouTube, it's essentially like following them on any other platform. When you subscribe to someone on Twitch, you're actually committing to a $5 a month subscription.
To that individual?
To that individual, yes. However, it is split between Twitch and the individual. And I feel like that's
50-50
why...
or...
It's 70-30 for Poki.
All right.
Depends. So yeah, I feel like that's why a lot of people love streaming, because you can build like a very consistent income through it because it's a monthly reoccurring amount. And of course, people can choose to cancel or resub as they please. But aside from that, just like any other platform, likely the majority of your income will come from ads and sponsors.
What about the last guy, Adam Mosseri and Instagram? We like them, or how do they help?
Oh my God, I love listening to him speak. I think he's so cool.
Are you making some money through Instagram, and what's the mechanism?
Absolutely, through sponsorships primarily. Yes.
Yeah.
Interesting, that's different.
It's an important, a creator on Twitch, they make some money from Twitch, and they make some money from sponsors, okay? And that's an important part of them building their life. And on Twitch, one of the interesting facts is over 2/3 of our revenue comes from the subscriptions and direct from support. 1/3 comes from ads. Okay, so
to clarify, ads are like a platform putting an ad on your page versus sponsors is a company sponsoring me to say, oh, I love this brand of toothpaste.
I got a lot of friends in back of house, and they're going to get very mad.
They're yelling at you.
I have to ask about AI. You have a deep background academically in AI. 30 seconds on how it's going to change the platform, and then 30 seconds on how it's going to change your day-to-day as well. Dan.
All right, I'll be very quick. I think fundamentally this idea on Twitch, AI isn't going to substitute for our creators. The emotional attachment that viewers have is with people, and that will always be the case. AI just becomes a tool for them to express their creative abilities. So now they can do things they previously couldn't do. People who couldn't write a song, now they're going to write a song or whatever it is. So much like gaming, which gives a streamer stimulus to respond to and entertain, I think AI gives a streamer stimulus and tools that they can express and entertain their audience.
For me, I really, really prefer not to use AI for any creative endeavors. However, we'll see how tools are developed over time and whether or not it makes sense for me to tap into. But for now, I really try to use my own two hands.